Most students know the steps of sandwich ELISA. But in exams, interviews, and even real labs, they still make mistakes. In this video, I'm not repeating basic definitions. I'll focus on what students usually miss and the tricky concepts that actually decide whether your result is correct or wrong. The most common reasons are confusion between capture and detection antibodies, misunderstanding controls, misinterpreting color intensity, and completely ignoring the hook effect. Let's quickly revise what we already know in sandwich ELISA. The antigen is trapped between two antibodies. The capture antibody is immobilized on the plate, and the detection antibody binds from the top. Very importantly, both antibodies bind to different epitopes of the same antigen. If they bind the same epitope, the assay fails. This point is often underestimated by students. Sandwich ELISA has both advantages and limitations, and it is highly sensitive and specific. Here is the complete workflow. It has applications in diagnostics research labs and clinical studies. Sandwich ELISA is used for hormones, cytokines, tumor markers, viral and bacterial antigens. Capture versus detection antibody. This is probably the most confusing part for students. The capture antibody must bind the antigen strongly and stably because it anchors the antigen to the plate. The detection antibody binds a different epitope and is often biotinylated or detected using a secondary antibody. If both antibodies recognize the same epitope, no sandwich forms, and the assay fails completely. Using two antibodies is not just for decoration. One antibody already reduces background noise. But when two antibodies are used, the antigen must satisfy two independent binding conditions. This dramatically reduces false positives and increases assay specificity. That's why sandwich ELISA is considered the gold standard for protein detection. Now comes the hook effect. In this case, extremely high antigen concentration produces a low signal. This is because excess antigen saturates both capture and detection antibodies separately, preventing proper sandwich formation. The result is a falsely low reading. Here's a simple trick every student must remember. If you suspect hook effect, dilute the sample. If dilution causes the signal to increase, the hook effect is confirmed. This step is critical in clinical samples where antigen concentration can be very high. Let's walk through this graph, which illustrates how the optical density, OD, signal changes with increasing concentrations of type II collagen. On the x-axis, we have collagen concentration and on the y-axis, the OD signal. As the concentration increases, the signal initially rises. This is the reportable range, where the assay behaves predictably and accurately reflects antigen levels. However, beyond a certain point, we enter the error range, marked here in the middle. This is where the assay begins to misbehave due to what's known as the hook effect. In this zone, the signal plateaus and then drops sharply, even though the antigen concentration continues to rise. In the hook effect, extremely high antigen concentration produces a falsely low signal, causing underestimation of concentration, as seen by the declining right side of the curve. In left region, the antigen concentration is very low and the signal is weak. Few antigen molecules are available to bind with antibodies, resulting in minimal complex formation. In the right region initially, signal remains high as antigen concentration increases. But beyond the threshold, the hook effect kicks in. This leads to a decline in signal, causing underestimation of actual antigen levels. This graph shows two very important regions of the ELISA standard curve. The middle rising portion is the reportable or quantifiable range. Moving slightly upward, we enter the upper middle portion, also called the saturation or error range. Here, the signal is already near its maximum. A sample with very high antigen gives low OD, looks like a low concentration sample and is completely misleading. For any ELISA experiment, proper controls are mandatory to validate the results. A blank control contains no antigen or antibody and is used to correct background absorbance. A negative control confirms the absence of non-specific binding. A positive control ensures that the assay components and protocol are functioning correctly. In ELISA, the most commonly used enzyme labels are HRP, horseradish peroxidase, and ALP, alkaline phosphatase. But HRP has certain advantages over ALP. Because of its speed, sensitivity, and low cost, HRP is the enzyme of choice in most ELISA-based assays. Many students focus heavily on antibodies and antigens, but in reality, washing steps are one of the biggest sources of error in ELISA. Washing controls the signal-to-noise ratio in ELISA. Good washing reduces noise, while poor washing amplifies it. Common mistakes students make are incomplete aspiration of wash buffer, splashing between wells, using too few wash cycles, not soaking wells during washing, and inconsistent manual washing. Blocking is a critical step in ELISA, not just a routine or optional procedure. After coating the plate with capture antibody, many empty binding sites remain on the plastic surface. If these sites are not properly blocked, detection antibodies and enzymes can bind non-specifically, producing high background and false signals. Blocking fails mainly for two reasons. Wrong blocker used and insufficient incubation. In Sandwich ELISA, we deliberately use different types of antibodies for capture and detection to balance specificity and sensitivity. Using a monoclonal antibody for capture ensures that only the target antigen is immobilized on the plate. When used as detection antibodies, polyclonal antibody molecules bind to a single captured antigen. Signal strength in ELISA depends on how many enzymes are present per antigen. More enzymes cause more substrate conversion, which causes darker color. Because monoclonal antibodies are highly specific, there is no cross-reactivity. They do not bind similar proteins. They reduce false positive results. A very common mistake in ELISA interpretation is assuming that darker color always means higher analyte concentration. In ELISA, color intensity reflects enzyme activity, not antigen concentration directly. Enzyme activity reflects how efficiently the antigen-antibody sandwich is formed. Outside the linear range, color intensity can be misleading. Situations where dark color misleads are saturation region, hook effect region, poor washing in outside standard curve. Sandwich ELISA works only when the antigen is large enough. Sandwich ELISA fails for haptens because small molecules, haptens, have only one epitope, and because of this, two antibodies cannot bind simultaneously. These are some real trap questions that often confuse students in ELISA.